for it, yeah. We're here for it, yeah. We're here for it, yeah. We're here for it, yeah.
Hey, Melanie.
Hi,
How are you
Paula.
doing? I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm well, very good. I'm glad to be talking to you.
As am I. I am super excited and also really grateful that you gave us a bit of time to chat and get to know you, know your story, know all that God is doing in your life, and sharing that with the people watching and listening. So if you could please just briefly introduce yourself to us.
Sure. My name is Melanie Waldman. Um, I am living part-time in Florida and Nashville, coming here today from Florida, and live with my husband, Scott. We've been married 8.5 years, and we have 3 children, adult children. And I pursue not only the music that tells the story of what God's done in my life, but also run a ministry of spiritual care for people. And I also became an author for the first time this year, putting out my testimony in the form of a book.
Yes, many, many hats. We love to see it. So you're a recording artist, a public speaker, wife, mother. You've got 20 years in corporate comms, in the professional world, and you're also completing a Master of Divinity at Liberty University. So there are definitely loads of bits that I want to dig into throughout this interview. But right now, let's start at the beginning and kind of go through the whole story as much as you would like to share. So if you could just tell us a little bit about your early life and your formative years, what do you remember?
Sure. So my upbringing was pretty rough, but somehow the youngest 3 kids got to go away to summer camp, and my sister got to choose, and she chose Camp Good News in Massachusetts here in the US. And I met Jesus at 7. And it was kind of the first time I saw like lightness in the world and joy and laughter. But things at home hadn't really gotten any better, and some terrible things happened. Um, our house had burned down to the ground. We were living in a motel, and around this time, I was abducted and taken into a car and yeah, overcome. I was let go later that night, but that event, as well as so many other just really difficult events in my childhood, kind of formed my belief system growing up. And I think I kind of thought that Jesus I met at camp was fake, and everything else that was happening around me was much more real. And I had to figure out how to live in this world. And it was very difficult. I lived and grew kind of according to the lies that I learned from the dangerous situations around me. So I was believing a lot of really bad and wrong things about the world, about myself, and about God. And so I got myself into some pretty bad situations. And that's kind of what my life was like. Although I was striving to be perfect, inside it was really not pretty.
Wow, that is so tough. And I know that the story obviously has a happy ending. Here you are now, but I can imagine that being such a overwhelming time for you at such a young age, that it must have been really hard to see that there was a future to go to. I definitely want to kind of go further into some of the story, but keeping it on the theme of music, was there any like link or early memory linked to music that kind of was a part of your story?
Yes, I was definitely singing at a very young age, and singing at camp. Like singing at camp was huge for me. Um, Loved all the songs, would make up, dance routines. Just singing was definitely a coping mechanism for me. The breathing and the kind of going off on my own and singing was a sort of comfort. So and I did get to go to music school when I was older because I was given this gift of music. And so, yeah.
I love that you refer to it as being given the gift of music, because as Christians, we do believe that this is something that is you're called to do, you're purposed to do, you're filled to do. And I love that you live that in your entirety. Going on to that part of your life, so you're now a teenager, you're going into your early adulthood. Could you speak a little bit about that experience, and was this where your life started to change?
No, it took a long time for me to finally surrender to the Lord and believe. So in my teens and early 20s, I was just striving for perfection, and I held myself up to and everybody up to a very high bar. And so, I was a fierce judge of myself and others. And so I faked my way through relationships. Nobody really knew what had happened to me. I had really suppressed it, just buried all of the stuff and just had to figure out how to live, how to survive. And so it was all performance. It was all like, how do I get these people to like me? What do I say in my teenage years? What do I say so that I could be accepted, or going out for a part, or, in the choir, or the musical, or cheerleading, or whatever. It was always kind of just faking my way. And that, I got into music school for college, and that worked out well because it was all like acting and singing. It was all performance based. But I met my first husband there, and he kind of checked all the boxes, looked really good on the outside. Inside, our marriage wasn't based on anything that was real. It was very superficial, and I struggled so much with control, as you can kind of tell. This kind of striving lifestyle. So getting someone else into this, in this marriage, and having to control everything out of fear or whatever, really the marriage didn't and couldn't last. So that was where really my first, I would guess I'd call it like a reckoning, where I tried to take my own life and wasn't successful. And I didn't turn to the Lord, but I did start talking to people, like professionals, about what had happened. And, started to think, okay, maybe there are a couple people I could trust to tell what's gone on in my life, and start to unpack that. But it was still, from that point forward, it was more than another decade of, I got myself into harmful relationships with men. I just believed that I wasn't worth anything. I believed that I was only worth what I could do for, the other person, for the man. And I was believing that there really weren't trustworthy people, like that life was inherently dangerous. And so I just perpetuated that in my adult life. And when things started to change, which is really where what you asked, was when I started to see the results of this lifestyle, this way of living on my son. And when I saw him start to display some of the same troubling inability to cope with life, that's when things started to change.
Wow, it's crazy and um upsetting that it takes such a like drastic thing sometimes to hit that rock bottom. And I really want to ask and understand, and I guess also for the people watching and listening, when you talk about, and you've mentioned this in previous interviews and content you've got online, when you talk about the constant darkness that comes from like like just desperate striving, constant striving, and you also name it like generational sin and trauma that kind of lives on. How does a loved one reach someone who's in that? What's the the best way to let someone know that, hey, I'm with you while you're going through something so big and traumatic and all consuming?
Well, first I could say, uh, you know, I don't think there was anything anybody could say to me that, and I can remember friends asking me, like, why are you getting yourself in these relationships with men? Like, why are you with this guy? And there was, you're so beautiful, or, you're so this or that. And I was just like, I couldn't believe it. My mind was full of what I believed, and what I believed was all the lies. I believed that life equaled loss. I believed that all of life was dangerous, as I said, that people weren't to be trusted. And I just couldn't believe anything else. And I don't know that there would be anything that anybody could have said to me to make a difference. And so what I would say though is that you pray, um, and you pray with faith that God will move, and you try to, like, this is what happened later after I received restoration and people that I've seen struggles. I try to slowly and with discernment from the Lord kind of move into someone's life so that try to be a trustworthy person and listen. And I don't really know, because there wasn't anything anybody said to me that did, that I recognized, like, did anything. I just, as I mentioned, I saw it in my son, and he was the one, that I just loved more than anything. And I trusted him as innocent, and I trusted him as good. And so when I saw what I was doing playing out in his life now and his inability to cope, I it broke my heart. And so I actually gave him up for a time, and giving him up to his father, who had kind of become estranged to us, and he lived like several states away. But it didn't last. He was coming back, and I needed to find some place to live. And a friend pointed me, this friend who really isn't a believer, I would say. I think she does believe that Jesus is real, but I don't know that she's, going to church every week and thinking about Jesus and praying. But she did point me to a house for rent, and I went to look at it, and it was surrounded by churches on every side. And that's when I started going I signed that lease, and Nick came back, and I started going to church and making my life all about the church. And my life started to look better, and I felt stronger. And so it was just enough to keep me coming back. So I know that's a long answer to your question. I don't know that there's anything somebody could say, but I think that you just love them in action, like sincerely love them. Don't try to preach or tell them what to do, because if you look at my life as an example, I was just full of rebellion. I wasn't going to do what somebody told me to do. No. So it was almost better that no one told me you should go to church, because maybe that would have been a problem. I don't know. But that's how I would answer that.
I love what you said about just loving in action, because that for me feels like quite a practical thing that we can do. I think, speaking for myself, I know myself, if I see a loved one doing something I don't think's right for them, I'm so ready to, bash it over their head, because I think I'm helping. I think I'm giving you the information to make the right decision, when really it is just burdening someone who doesn't want to hear that. And like you said, if there is a rebellion, situation going on where you don't want to do what people are telling you to do, it doesn't help. I guess that loving in action and actually being there with them, and being someone that they can come around for dinner, or being someone that, I'll look after the kids while you go out, or whatever the case may be. I think, yeah, it's so beautiful to hear that actually was a part of your story, even if it wasn't involving someone who was necessarily a Christian. And so
I would just say, actually, so I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just did realize, like, if you can do that and love in action and just kind of move into their lives in the most loving way, be ready for when they ask. So when they ask you, what do you think, or what would you do, or something to that regard, be ready, because it will happen, especially if you're praying for them. Ask the Lord to make an opening. And I know this as a truth now, is that when people are asking questions, that's when you can deposit, as opposed to, like, we want to, like, fix people, and it just doesn't work. The Lord is the ultimate healer, not us.
the Lord is the ultimate healer. And even just going on to that moment, where you describe it as a miraculous replacing of lies with his truth. And we will talk more about the replacing of lies, because that's key. But I want to specifically speak about that breakthrough experience, where it was the turning point. What was that point? What was that moment for you? And how do you feel Jesus turned it around for his good?
Oh my gosh. I was, as I mentioned, making my life about the church, and it was 8 years in. So I got very involved in doing Bible studies and book studies and volunteering, was asked to start leading worship. and eventually was asked to lead worship at a large Celebrate Recovery ministry nearby. And so now I start to recognize this idea of codependence, which is like Celebrate Recovery is just like kind of like an AA program, but it's based on the Bible and what the Lord says. So I started getting involved and doing this, and I saw my life starting to look lighter and better, but um, I was still waking up with terror at night, and I was still waking up in the mornings with like a pit of dread for the day. So it wasn't I wasn't good, but I heard I started to hear from the Lord about something that seemed like a revelation to me. It was like John 10:10, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I've come that they may have life and life to the full. And then these other passages, also in John, who the Son sets free is free indeed. So these were passages about freedom, and they were passages about how the Lord didn't just come for he didn't just come for eternity, for us to live with him after we die and so that we would go to heaven with him. That's not it. It's also that we could have a free and a full life here, his kingdom come on earth. And so it was like that was like it dawned on me that he had more for me. And so when I had this conversation with my pastor about it, he recommended a place in the US called Restoring the Foundations. And it is a deliverance ministry, and they look at generational sin and breaking the chains of agreements that have been made through the generations in families. And so I didn't realize like that was obviously a part of my story. And so I went to Restoring the Foundations, and I received a deliverance. One part of that experience, and I think it went for 7 days, one part of that experience was asking the Lord the Holy Spirit, if there were lies that I was believing that he'd like to replace with his truth. And that experience was like, it just, all of a sudden I was flooded with, these beautiful truths. And it wasn't just in my brain. It was actually just like through my spirit that it came, that I am a precious child of God, that I am perfectly and wonderfully made, that God wants me to be happy and full of the love of the Father, being fully who he created me to be, that I am safe in his arms, that I am guarded by his armies, that I'm free to be who he created me to be, bright and shining. I can use my voice, which he's given me, speaking truth and love, and so many more than these. He gave me, like, I want to say like almost 20 of these at one time. And I just was speaking them out, and they wrote them down and gave them back to me. And when I went home, they had me, memorize them, speak them all day for, a year, until they just became my new operating system. So when trials would come, I didn't defer to, I'm nothing, I'm worthless, I can't do this. No, like, or this is what I deserve. Like, those thoughts were gone. Like, I was like, I'm heir to the royal kingdom. Like, I'm royalty. So I just knew who I was in Christ, and it changed everything. My life, not just how I moved and operated after this experience, but also like I was healed from Lyme disease. I no longer attracted my type of guy. It was like ridiculous to think that I would be with someone who would intend to harm me. I had a $50,000 debt to the IRS that I had no idea how I was going to pay. And it was about 6 months after I had my ministry, and it was gone. It was like there was a new tax law, and it was absolutely gone. So from that experience, he restored me physically. He restored me obviously emotionally and relationally with him and with others. And he restored me financially. So I was just fully restored. And since then, I've just been telling people about it and realizing that, like I did, I thought that Jesus was fake. That camp thing was just a camp thing, or maybe people go to church and they think that's just a church thing. And it's just like, no, like, this is a real God. He's present, and he does want to heal us, and he is able, and he is still healing. And that's what I'm all about. So whether it's writing songs about it, whether it's the book I put out, which is the story, or the spiritual care that I do, it's all about it. And I just I've just forever changed. And so, when you're given a great gift, you respond. You can't not respond. And so, yeah, long answer.
No, it's great. It's great. Oh wow, that's amazing. And it's so beautiful to see Jesus rewriting stories, because it feels like there was a track that you were going on that you thought the end is this. And Jesus came in and like wrote a bridge, or wrote a ladder to the next part, and that changed that diverted it completely. And I love this idea, because it kind of continues on from the previous question I asked you about replacing lies with his truth. And so let's talk about your spiritual care program, Replacing the Lies. I love it. Does what it says on the tin. I love that.
It's so literal. I'm such a literal person.
I was like, are you going to go by RTL or something?
RTL, yeah,
Mix it
no.
up. But please tell us a little bit about this program and what it means to you.
Yeah, so I think I realized that not everybody is going to go away to, I went away to the woods of North Carolina to this, to some strangers, basically, to receive deliverance. Like, not everyone, either they won't do it, or they don't feel their trauma warrants that, maybe. And so what my replacing the lies is it's kind of like everything I've learned over that journey to when the Lord replaced the lies with truth. So I focus on things like gratitude, forgiveness, the promises of God, how the Holy Spirit works. Let's see, what else? Surrender, the difference between surrender and submission, and what that looks like. And then, and replacing the lies, and remembering. And the premise of it is really that, and I know you know this, that basically what we believe, like, dictates how we live. And let me explain what I mean by that. How I say it is like, if you think it's going to rain later, you don't just think it's going to rain. You actually live according to that. So you maybe will grab a raincoat, if you remember, or you'll grab an umbrella. What we believe impacts, and sometimes even, can dictate how we live. So, the lies I was believing. So if I believe that no one can be trusted, I don't seek out trustworthy men. There aren't any. It's just not or if you think that all of life is dangerous, you're just not going to seek out safe situations. And so replacing the lies, we slow down. And the fact is that these lies are just right under the surface. And people become to recognize them when kind of like the crap hits the fan, so to speak. Like, you just get slapped down in some way, and you're like, why does it always come to this? Why do I always feel like blank? Or so we know what these things are. Or maybe you hear a critical parent or something, a lie that was spoken over you, and it may not be there every second of every day, but it's there, and it doesn't go away. But what we do is we kind of shove it down so that we can just live and get to work and take care of our family or whatever it is. And so what we're doing is we're slowing down, and we're allowing these lies to be seen, like to be like captured. Get them in the journal. Like, okay, like, let's get them down. We know what it is. I'm constantly feeling less than, or I'm whatever that. And how you know it's a lie is that it leads to loss. The liar, the enemy, is the author of chaos and destruction and lies. His way leads to loss. But the truth from the Bible leads to abundance. And that's just what I just call, like, that's the math. And my life is a living example of that. Since I've been living according to the truth, it's abundance. It's glory to glory. And when you're believing the liar and you're agreeing and living according to it, it's just reaps chaos. And it doesn't have to be huge, like my experience. It can be in any which way. Do you find yourself, beating yourself up over this? Or do you find yourself jealous? Or do you find yourself, striving, thinking your life is about money? Do you find yourself always struggling with money? What is it? It could be many things that you're just experiencing that is a loss, that isn't a gain, that isn't a positive. That means that we're living according to something that's not true. Let's let's see it, like, and let's ask the Lord to speak the truth. So we do that over 8 weeks, and it's Bible study structured in these different categories, and the Word does the work because the truth is all in there. And each day there's kind of journaling, directed, kind of journaling and understanding and processing who we are and what God's like and what He has for us. And it just takes time to really take hold. And by the end, there's a new spark, there's a new depth of dependence and also faith, because we know much more about God and how much He loves us by the end, that we can ask the Lord to give us His truth, that to replace the lies we're believing.
Yeah, that's so good. And I love the idea of like a math equation where it's like lie minus, this plus truth equals freedom. I think I would love to understand or have an example of one lie that you've seen women who've come on the program or couples or whoever's come on the program, share, and how you've been able to dismantle it, like what truth from the Bible you've used to cover it. I'd love an example of that.
So the example I love the most is women who come in who are really struggling in their marriage, because it's very common to believe that the problem you're having in your life is your spouse. And but you come to find that there is a lack of faith that God is at work. It's really the fundamentals of faith that we come to understand through this program, that changes a woman's perspective to begin to pray for their spouse, but also to begin to ask the Lord, just His truths about who we are and what is it He's doing in this marriage relationship. Why are there struggles? What is it, I'm believing, and how is it I'm operating? We have this tendency as people to want to control other people, and we think that we can change people. And once we realize that, that doesn't do anything, actually trying to control someone else or change someone else actually leads to them, like we said in the beginning, like this kind of rebellion and the digging into the heels, especially in marriage relationships. So I love to see women go from that struggle and to praying for their husband, to relying on the Lord, to when the husband fails and falls, realizing that the first person that's being hurt is God. The second person that's being hurt is the husband doing it to himself or whatever. And like at the very least, you're like, at the very best, you're third. But we like to think like we're number one. If my husband harms me or let's say cheats on me, like I'm the number one victim. But it's not true. We're not the number one victim. It's God is heartbroken should a husband cheat or a spouse cheat, and the husband is full of shame and full of so much pain, and then it's the spouse. So I don't know if that's really explaining it, because I didn't give you a specific lie, but I guess I did, believing that the source of our problem is other people.
And I love that this program is so practical, but also just like very real about how you think and how you feel. I really respect that. If someone watching, listening is to go through a program like this, they've come to a point where they're like, yep, they've come to a point where they're like, actually, everything else I've tried isn't working. And the only way I'm actually going to move on from a belief system that is basically my level one is to rebuild that belief system, essentially. And I think, yeah, programs like this, when it's spiritual health, so key. And I think as Christians, sometimes we think, okay, well, I believe in Jesus, so that's the end. I don't really need to do anything else. I don't need to better myself. I don't need to improve anything. When we've actually been called to continue on this journey. It's not a one and done thing. Yes, we have salvation, but we also need to continue on that. That's the process of sanctification. So I'm really encouraged that you have used something that's actually really traumatic to build something that's going to change people's lives. You didn't have to share your story. You could have enjoyed your healing and, you know, lived the rest of your life with your husband happy and your kids happy and you happy and healthy. And but I think there is a level of service, servitude and wanting to be of service to other people that turns the hardness into usefulness for other people. And I just want to applaud you and like praise God for you, because genuinely some of the stuff you've mentioned, even though I've read your bio and I planned these questions, I was shocked, because I think that would have been the end of most people, you know. And so I'm really encouraged by your story. Yeah, that wasn't a question, just wanted to say.
Well, I did want to mention something that's unique about this program is that the people who participate, they're not sharing with me, and they're also not sharing with any others who are in the same small group. It's actually a journal-based program. So you're going to go as deep as you want with the Lord. You're going to reveal these things you've been covering, you know, to the extent in which you're willing to and ready to in your journey. So I think that's a little bit different, because no one's going to be telling you what to do or giving you any advice. It's really like we're all learning the same thing as we go. And every time I do it, I'm receiving a new truth as well. And it's such a blessing to know that I think God just does that for me, because he keeps me like totally into it, because my life becomes better when you know, when I'm living more and more according to his truth. And like you said, you know, the Bible says we should take captive every thought and make it obedient unto the word and unto Christ. And it's kind of like that, you know. It's but in a beautiful way. It's like we're going to say, what is it we're believing, and let's really turn our attention from that, put it on the word, and ask the Lord, what does he have to say about it? What does the world say, and what does God say? And then journaling about whether or not we're going to choose to believe it. We're going to be like, Lord, I hear you saying that I am heir, or that I am a friend of God. This is very difficult for me to believe, Lord, because blah, 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 blah. God, help me believe that I am your friend. And then you wait and you listen and you give people permission for it to be quiet. And then they're just journaling. And I love that aspect, because they never have to reveal their deepest, darkest secrets to me, but I can tell them without a shadow of a doubt, they're guaranteed forgiven. You know, I know that is true. I don't care what you've done, you know, and like, let's come into alignment with that. He says we're forgiven. He paid the price. So what are we doing withholding that forgiveness from ourselves or from another? So anyway, I do enjoy it. For the first time, I got asked to come and do it on site. So I'm going to do it in, on site at a woman's recovery house. These are women who were trafficked, and they've just come out. So maybe by the time this comes out, I'll have already done that. It's in September. So I am so looking forward to this opportunity to be in person and to do this program in person with women who, yeah, they know the Lord, but there's so much good to come in their lives. And I can't wait to be a little part of that.
I love watching the passion on your face when you speak about it. Like you kind of like radiate the joy and the freedom that you've received like back speaking about it. And I think when you have a practitioner of a program who actually like believes what they're teaching, it's like, okay, this is legit. This is great. So thanks for sharing that. But let's talk a little bit about stories and songs. So tell us a little bit about starting it and how you realized that weaving your original music with such a like intense testimony was like a powerful way to share your journey.
Oh my gosh. I love that, how you phrase that question. That's so good, because first of all, like how it started is so cool. I was working for church. I was like on the call center for this church that has people from all around the world. It's called Church Home. And they would get people needing, prayer. And so I'm loving this job, because people are coming at their worst possible moments. And so many people are coming to the Lord. So many people are growing in their faith. I loved this job. And so my husband said to me, would you consider quitting your job? Because, your ministry, the ministry God gave you, your music and your testimony, we're not really, doing it because you're working, for these, I think it was 20 something hours plus volunteer hours for the church. And so I was like, no, and 2 weeks later, they laid me off. So it was like, oh yeah, like, first of all, listen to your husband. Sometimes they know some things. Second of all, yeah, I took it as a direct sign, and God is so good that way. He kind of, makes things like absolutely obvious, and I love that. I love that he does that sometimes. And so it was like, we got to do this, So that's when I started, to reach out to people, tried to find people to help. One of the ladies helped me, and she's like, you've got to do the book. And I had started it a little bit, but hadn't really gotten to it. So we just worked really hard on getting that done. And I tried not to make it like something super long, like, here's my first book. No, it was just like, I got to get the testimony out. So many people were like, you got to write that testimony down. And so I just needed to do it. And so I got that done. And then we met with someone else who kind of puts shows together, and got his criticism of how I was delivering, and my husband built this beautiful pro presenter with visuals, pictures of my youth, and then through the years, and then also made lyric videos for each of my songs. How I put it all together, I don't really know. I mean, it's just kind of worked out where, well, for example, the song I wrote, Look What Love Has Done, okay, I'm going to put that right after, when I came out of the deliverance, the restoration moment that I told you about, like that specific. So I'll put the song there in my story. And then what else goes where? Like when I was in the hospital, and the doctors called it a breakdown, but today I see it as a breakthrough. And I wrote a song called Heaven Coming Down, and it says, what if your breakdown is a breakthrough? So it made perfect sense to kind of go there. Everything kind of just had its place, and that's kind of how my life is. I don't know how things happen the way they happen, or why, even in some cases, but he's good, and I trust him. And so I'm doing this now. Will I be doing this in 5 years from now? I don't know. I don't know if I'll be doing it. I guess we'll be doing it in a few months, now. And I don't know. I just don't. I like to follow the spirit and go where he leads.
That's the way to go, right? And it keeps life fun and interesting, but also very much spirit led. And we will talk about the book next. So, well, actually, first let's talk about the song, because the book and the song have the same name. Look what Love Has Done. That song is all about your testimony. So it's very personal. It's very real to the experience that you had. Can you please talk about writing that song, and then after that we can talk about why that had to also be the name of the book?
Well, I don't even know if I have an answer for that, but how it became the name of the book, but how I began was, I was coming to Nashville to try and learn about how to write better songs. I had started writing songs. I was in New York. So I had started writing songs myself, but I had learned through some, through the Gospel Music Association, really, that, co-writing is a big thing, especially for songs for the church. And so I was accepted to come to a program called Immerse, which I don't think they run anymore, but the Gospel Music Association, the GMA, hosted this in Nashville. And I met a number of, professional songwriters who listened to kind of a draft of that song and loved it, but had ideas. Like, this one writer had like very specific ideas. So I followed up with him after. His name is Michael Farron. I followed up with him after, and just started to tell him my story. And it's just like, listen, God gave me the gift of music, so I gotta I got to tell this story as best I can through some songs, can you help me? And he had a program where he was, kind of basically consulting, and making himself available to new songwriters. And so the book came so much later, because I wrote Look What Love Has Done, I think in like 2016, maybe 2017. I'm not sure. But Look What Love Has Done, I guess it just makes perfect sense, because the story, the great thing about the story, right, is what the Lord did, and now what does life look like now? And so it's just like, look at how it was, look at how my life was, look what God did, and now look how my life is. And so it's his love. One of the things that happened in my deliverance that we didn't talk about was, they had me invite Jesus back into the car where I was abducted, which is, just a strange concept, but to go back to that idea of when you were taken and invite Jesus in. And the moment that I did that, in this kind of supernatural way, or this supernatural realm, it was like his blood just like poured out over me. And it completely washed me clean of that event. And there was instant forgiveness. I didn't know I was harboring unforgiveness for the man who took me, but obviously, I mean, who wouldn't, but that was it. I was washed free of it. And I consider that, his love that just washed over me. So, look what, it's because he loved me, that he came. That's why, because he loves us, that he came to earth. And it's because he loved me that he healed me. So look what love has done. That's my best answer. I don't know. I don't know how it came to be that the name of the book would be that, but it just seemed to make perfect sense.
Wow. When you said that about about inviting Jesus in the car with you and him washing you clean and washing the unforgiveness away, my eyes literally like filled up with tears. I don't know if you saw my face. I I yeah, it's Jesus, because I just think it's not humanly natural to be able to move on from something that's actually meant to destroy you. It's not humanly natural to have the strength to forgive someone who probably is unrepentant as well. Um, and so it's the title of the book, Look What Love Has Done, because, and Jesus is love, obviously. Everyone who didn't know, Jesus is love. Because without that, that's not possible. And I just, yeah, I think it hit me in that moment. I was just, because I think as a person who does these interviews, I'm always so encouraged, and I love when I see women like fully explore all the skills and outlets that God has given them. And so having you write songs and tell your story and share the goodness of God in songs, and then to have your actual story be written in book form, is so powerful, because there are some people who will hear your music and that's how they get it. There's also some people that will read your book and that's how they get the message. Just people that go on your program and that's how they'll get the message. I think you have been obedient in utilizing all these parts of who you are to tell a story that will change people's literal lives. And I would just love for you to maybe talk about how the process of writing a song is, oh, sorry, writing a book is different from songwriting or from like leading a program.
Well, I think writing a song has to be a little bit more creative. And this is, writing a book is very much just, it's kind of like a report. You're reporting on what happened. So it's a little bit less creative. Like a song, oftentimes you want some like near rhyming. So I think it's a much more creative process to be able to write songs musically. These like melody lines and stuff, they just kind of come. That's not something that I do. It's just, melody lines are, I guess, just like a gift from God. It's good that you know the notes and you know the music and the theory behind it, but the melody lines kind of just come. And then the music and the instrumentation, I really rely on my producer to create the music. So oftentimes it's just me and the guitar, or me and the piano, or or my co-writer on a piano or a guitar. So I would say one is this is more like a report, which I tried to keep very simple and not elaborate. And then the songwriting is just a more creative process.
And you basically just switch hats depending on the scenarios that you are in, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'll write something else because I write in school. I have to write sermons right now. I'm starting my New Testament sermon writing class next Wednesday. So I do a lot of writing for school. So I probably will do more writing. But this was kind of the thing that needed to be told in written form. So we'll see what God does.
And I love that you just mentioned that you're also completing your Masters of Divinity, and you're in school, you're doing the sermon lectures and all of that. How are you keeping all these plates spinning at the same time, How are you doing it?
Well, I believe that God gives us all of the energy we need to do everything he's asking us to do in a day, if you know what I mean. So the school wasn't like any deadline, so I really went at my own pace. I was able to take as many courses or none, for a period of time. So I'm just taking one class, at a time. So it's a good amount of reading and writing, but like you say, our faith is a journey. We want to know more and we want to grow. And so oftentimes it's kind of the only reading that I can do. I don't have, like a lot of other people, like, have you read this or have you read that? And I was like, no, I'm reading my textbook, so not a lot of time for maybe, everything, but everything in its time, and everything in its season. And it's really, yeah, God makes the way for what it is he wants. Yeah. And my husband is so supportive, and my husband loves the Lord and what he's done in my life. And I've loved to see how God has grown his faith over time. And I really believe a lot of it has to do with me never getting in the way, because I so many women that I've spoken with, and also that have come through Replacing the Lies, we just think we know, and we think we know better, especially if we have faith. We're like, oh my, our God, our husband's got to have, our guy's got to have the Lord. Otherwise, and if I could share this, if there's time, I haven't really shared this in a long time, but this idea that our desire for our partner to know the Lord, this was true for me initially. It was selfish, because my life would be so much better if he knew the Lord, and if he trusted the Lord. Everything would be so much better. Relationship with our kids, relationship with me, and everything. But it was a selfish stance that I had, and I didn't realize it. And I mean, I don't really know how these things work. And, I'm not the end all, be all, but I can tell you when my prayer and my heart changed from, I want him to, surrender to the Lord for me so that my life could be better, but rather for him to know the Lord and to know what it's like to be loved by such a great God. And though that being the form of my interest in him, surrendering more and more, like when that was my heart and that became my interest, and not a selfish desire for him to have the faith. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, his faith it's so beautiful now. He prays for me. And as I mentioned, it was his idea that we started and go out and do stories and songs. He still works part-time. And so his finances often are the reason we can produce the music. And yeah, so, and his smarts, God's made him really smart and given him opportunities to, study law and accounting. And so he brings all of these skills to bear in service to the Lord. And so that's kind of how I can do what I do in a day.
I love what you said about you do that God gives you everything you need to do everything he's told you to do, because that's the main thing. I think you're able to spin all the plates because he's given you the right plates to spin, and you're choosing the right plates to spin. I think this plate analogy is definitely like limited, but you get what I mean. And I know we're getting towards the end of this interview now, but I would love for you to maybe share from your heart what's the single most, or a couple different messages or pieces of wisdom that you want people to take away from your story, your ministry, and music.
Before I answer that question, I just want you to know one of the first songs I wrote was called Falling. And it has a line that says, "Spinning plates is my disease. Don't know the reason why." And so this idea that we're trying to hold things together and we're trying to hold things up and keep things going is, a fallacy. And it's really, Lord, what can I do, today? And what should I do today to, to bless you and honor you? And so I kind of try to move and act according to the giftings he's given me and what I sense that he's calling me to do. In terms of what I would say, um, well, kind of the thrust of why and my ministry is that God is real, that he is near, that he loves you, that he has more for you. No matter where we are in our journey, you could have been going to church for 20 years, 30 years, or you haven't even accepted Jesus yet. There's so much more that he has in store for us until we meet him face to face. And so I just want people to know that it's not a line and it's not fake. It's the most real thing. He is the most real thing. And you can spend your whole life in rebellion. I almost did, right? I spent decades in rebellion, but if you choose to surrender your life to the Lord, I can tell you that it is the single best decision you will ever make, and that it's I want this isn't a great way to say it's not like a one and done. Like there's always more. He wants you to live life in the fullness. And that's why he came. He came to give us life and life to the full. And so I just encourage you, wherever you are in your journey, to look to him, to press in more, to release more of yourself to him and surrender. And whatever we can give up of ourselves and our understanding and receive what he has is all for our good and his glory.
Amen. That's so good. I would love to end this as with that final word, and just letting us know if there's any upcoming projects or tours or anything new you've got that you're excited to come out to the world.
I would love this opportunity to ask people to pray about my next music project. I'm praying, my husband's praying, trying to figure out. We have this project called Weekend Worship Collective, where I bring songwriters together, and we've written so many beautiful songs, but not really sure what the next step is with all of these beautiful songs. Are we, and what we're to do. And so, if you see this and you want to pray for me and my next steps with music, right now, you can go online and you can hear all the songs from Stories and Songs, and you can also hear a full project based on the Psalms, which really, I didn't really write those lyrics. They're really just from the verbatim from the Psalms mostly. But I have new music, and I'm trying to discern from the Lord how to proceed. And so I would love any prayers for that.
We'll definitely be praying. We'll definitely be praying. Thank you so much, Melanie, for your time, for your heart, for being so passionate, for sharing. I really pray that those watching and listening have been encouraged, have also had their minds open to the reality of Jesus and how impactful and truthful he is and faithful he is. And so if you've left one person with that message, you've been successful today. So I just want to say thank you. Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the SheHH podcast. If you did, please leave a like rating, comment down below, and share this episode with a friend. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at SheHH Podcast.